One of the most controversial questions in modern relationships is this: who should cook in marriage? Some say it's a woman's duty. Others say everybody should fend for themselves. But what does the Bible actually teach? Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm Adeshola Akiade, and on this channel we talk about godly relationships, biblical courtships, and kingdom marriage principles. Also, if you're yet to be a part of this family, kindly do so by subscribing. Thank you and God bless you. This conversation is deeper than food, because when couples argue about cooking, they are usually arguing about roles, expectations. They are arguing about responsibility, service, who ought to serve who. They are arguing about appreciation, about partnership. So we see that most marriages today are not suffering because of cooking itself. They are suffering because two people, that's the man and the woman, entered the marriage without clarity. Let's then examine what the Bible actually teaches. We'll start by first considering the Proverbs 31 woman. In that same Proverbs 31, if you check verse 15a and verse 27a, in 15a, the Bible says that she riseth up while it is yet done, that same woman, and provides meat unto her household. 27a says that she looks to the well-being of her household. And what those verses show us is that the Proverbs 31 woman was clearly involved in the management of her household, which included cooking. Another passage that I would love that we consider is Titus 2 4 to 5. In that passage, Paul was instructing older women to be good women, sober women, not drunks. And in addition to that instruction, he told them to teach younger women how to also be good women, how to be obedient wives, how to be keepers at home. So we see that homekeeping was a role that Paul ascribed to women. So yes, biblically, domestic roles, including cooking, was a natural feminine role. But the Bible never says that only women should cook. And the next thing that I would love that we delve into are the instances where men cooked in the Bible. But before we do that, let's consider history for a while. Why was it that domestic roles was a feminine role in Bible times? And historically, why was that so? Let's consider it first. Because we'll be using their practical reality and we'll be comparing it with our present day practical reality. I'll be giving about 3 reasons why that was so. The first reason is that the home and work were more connected at the time, which is unlike what we have in today's society. In this present day and age, most people work outside their homes, and the distance is always a long one. It's always a long commute. Then you have to consider the corporate structure. You have to consider the rigid schedules that hardly affords people time to do any other thing apart from the work. Back then, much work happened around the home. For women who worked, because it was not a requirement for women to have jobs, there were a lot of women who were just dependent on their husbands, the married ones. The unmarried ones were dependent on their fathers. We see Rebecca, for instance, in the Bible. We never told that she had a job. The Proverbs 31 woman, in her own case, had a job. She was into sewing, knitting, selling clothes, and she was very committed to it. Now, for women that had work, their base was usually their homes, their houses. Think about it like someone who is into sewing, but when she's knitting her wares, sewing those wares, she does them at home. And let's say they have one market day every 5 days. On those market days, she carries all of her wares and goes to the market to sell, then comes back home. Even if she's going to have, let's say, a shop that is not the house, it's not going to be far from the house. So it afforded women flexibility and more time to supervise the house, to take care of the children. He afforded them that time. Men in those days didn't have that as much. They didn't have that as much in those days. Another reason is because men's work, it involved extreme physical labor. Men were the farmers, the hunters, the fishermen, the shepherds. They traveled long distances. They were the soldiers going to war. So most of their work involved physical strength, involved physical labor. So it just made more sense to have the woman handle the home management because she had more flexibility, unlike the men. If they go out to wars, that could be months. But usually the woman will be at home. For the one who is working or the one who was working, her home is usually her base. But at that time, most women were not even working. The bulk of the work they did then, which was actually a lot of work, was the home management work. So the cooking, the cleaning, it was a lot of work really, because at that time they didn't have the luxury of buying half processed goods like we have now. Most of the things, so let's use cooking for instance. If they want to cook any meal, they have to start producing everything they will use from scratch. Imagine that you want to cook maybe jollof rice. You have to produce the tomato paste from scratch. You have to produce the seasoning from scratch. You have to produce a lot of things from scratch. So it was a whole lot of work. But I'm saying that they had more flexibility. And that was why it was just a no-brainer that they should handle that part. Men were always doing work that involved physical labor, physical strength. And closely related to the second reason, which I'll call the part B of that second reason, is that economic power was in the hands of men. The work that brought in more cash was work that had to do with physical strength. Farming, hunting, being a soldier, name it. And men occupied those spaces. So, and at that time, survival was structured differently. When fathers gave their daughters to be married to men, one of the first things they look out is, can their daughter thrive in this house? Does this man have the financial capacity to care for their daughter? So money was a major thing they looked at. So economic power was in the hands of men. It just made more sense that women handled the aspect of cooking, managing the house, supervising the children. Do you get? Another reason, which is the third reason, is, and this third reason, I believe it answers more the question of why that system worked for them, why they never really had issues with that system. It's the third reason is that they operated a collective family structure at the time. It was a collective family structure. Extended families lived together for years. So it wasn't a case of one woman handling the home front, the household responsibilities. It was a whole lot of women together, alternating duties, doing it together, taking up those responsibilities together. It was not the case of one isolated woman just doing the work, cooking, cleaning. No, it wasn't always that case. They had family bonds, families lived together. So a lot of women were always in the kitchen, always supervising. It was that. Then for rich people, they had servants. If you check the Bible, Sarah had servants, Rebecca had, Rachel had, the Proverbs 31 woman had. The Bible talks about her handmaidens as servants. And think about it logically. If the madam of the house, that's the woman in the house, if she wakes up at, let's say, 5 a.m., do you think the servants will still be sleeping? Do you think they won't know they ought to wake up with the woman of the house? Of course not. They will wake up. They have to wake up. It's just a no-brainer. So when the Bible talks about her providing meat for her household, it does not mean that she was the one doing all the work. It really just means that she was supervising her servants. Now, there may have been times that she actually did the work, but she had servants. So it means that the bulk of the rigorous work was done by our servants. And this is where I don't like people who are hypocrites, especially some of our African mothers, where they say things like, so I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but let me just say this. Where they say things like, oh, a virtuous woman is the woman that can handle everything by herself. She should be able to cook. With one hand, she's taking care of the children. With another hand, she's cleaning the house. And when they say that, they'll say it in such a way that having domestic assistance, having helps is just a no. You should not have that as a virtuous woman. It means you're not a complete woman. And I look at them and I say things like, you are hypocrites. Especially people that I can converse with. And I'll say that it's hypocrisy because in their own time, they had what I would call helps, but it wasn't hired helps. They had family members that stayed with them. So that's the thing about that collective family structure. A lot of African homes had it in the early years. They had it. So they would have maybe siblings, nieces that they were also training as much as they trained their children. But those people doubled as the helps in the house. So I just feel like it's hypocrisy when they say things like don't have helps. It's just hypocrisy. I just personally feel like it because they had it. And I'm going to share a story before this video ends, and it's a very interesting story, a personal one that has to do with this particular help subject matter. So all I want you to just see is that that's the history, that's where they were coming from, which is very different from what we have in today's society. Let's use the example of men and physical strength, their work having to do with physical strength. In today's society, the work that pays more is the one that has to do with mental skill. That's the one that pays more, remote jobs. Now, you don't even need to use a lot of physical strength again. We have machines doing those jobs. There's automation. So a lot of things have changed. Our practical realities are not the same. And you just have to understand that economic power doesn't really is not now dependent on physical strength. The example of collective family structure is not what we have now. In this society, we have a lot of individual family structure. You will hardly find homes now where extended families stay together. In fact, people avoid it because they don't want the drama that comes with it. So I'm saying the structure has changed, the reality has changed. But understand that history. Let's now move to the instances where men cooked in the Bible. And I won't just say cooked, they also served food in the Bible. The first is Abraham. In Genesis 18, when the angels of the Lord came to visit Abraham, he served them food. After instructing his servants to do this, to do that, he served them the food. Sarah was the one who cooked the food. He served them the food. And when I think about Sarah cooking the food, I'm thinking about the fact that she has servants. So most likely, she's not the one doing the work per se. Now, she may have done it. She may have done a huge part of it because these were special guests. But I believe that she had servants in that kitchen who were also doing the work with her. The point of this discourse is that Abraham served them the food. The next example we see is Jacob in Genesis 25, where Jacob cooked pottage. And Esau came back from work. He was tired and he wanted food. And that's a popular story where Jacob asked him to sell his birthright for that food, and he did it. And I love to think that that food must have been very, very delicious. The food must also have a very pleasing aroma for him to not think twice about it. Jacob must have been a good cook. But the point is that Jacob cooked in the Bible and Jacob was a man. Another example we see is Jesus in Luke 21. If you check from verse 9 to 13, Jesus cooked for his disciples. You can say that, oh, they were all men because that passage had to do with the part where they all went to fish. After Jesus' death and resurrection, they went to fish again. So it was the 11 that followed Peter, or should I call it the 11? The 10 followed Peter. So plus Peter, 11. So we know that they were men. Yeah. But Jesus cooked for them. And you may come with the argument of, oh, they were all men. So obviously it's a man that will cook in that gathering. But Jesus was the master. He was the rabbi. And the proper thing in our own terminology as humans would be that the followers ought to cook for the master. But no, Jesus was laying down another example where leadership is service. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I'll say it here again. But another picture that comes to my mind when I look at what happened in that passage is the instruction God gave in Ephesians, that Paul was giving in Ephesians, about the responsibilities of a husband and that of a wife. That the wife should submit and the husband should love as Christ loved the church. And the love of Christ to the church is laying down his life. He laid down his life. He served the church. Let's go back to that look. What that passage shows us is that cooking is not just cooking. It's not merely cooking. It's an act of service. It also shows us that cooking has no gender identity. It's not that it's only for a male, it's only for a female. If you are a male and you're cooking, you're less of yourself. No. And that's the things I want us to establish. These are foundational things I want us to establish. It has no gender identity. Let's also move to the foundational rules. And these foundational rules are the basis upon which everything gender role ought to stem from, including cooking. The first part we'll be checking will be Ephesians 5 from verse 22. In 22 to 23, the Bible says that wives should submit to their own husbands as unto the Lord. Then 25 says husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church, and he did that by laying down his life for the church. So we see that the Bible is clearly telling us what the role of the husband is and what the role of the wife is in marriage. That for the wife, everything you're doing in that marriage, make sure that you submit to your own husband. Make sure that you respect him, you adore him. Make sure you're doing that. So even when you cook, make sure that it's coming from a place of genuine respect, genuine admiration. Make sure it's coming from that. To the husband, everything you're doing, make sure it is coming from the standpoint of loving your wife, of caring for your wife. There's this translation, I believe it's Message version, and that's Colossians 3:18-19, that talks about the husband caring for the wife and not being harsh with the wife and not taking advantage of the wife. In that same Ephesians 5, if you read it downwards, it also talks about the husband caring for the wife as he cares for his own body, that no man hates his own body. So most of this conversation, it's when it's about gender roles, you will see that the root of it is selfishness, not really caring for yourself. So whether it's the woman, whether it's the man, it's really a conversation around selfishness, around me, my own comfort, what I want. And in marriage, there's no more me. It's us. We're a team. We're looking at how we can both thrive. We can both be better. We're trying to serve each other, care for each other. Now, it may feel like I'm directing the bulk of this conversation to men, but understand that it's because men have more to do with respect to these gender roles. Because most men, and I can't blame them, most men grew up in houses, especially African men. They grew up in houses where they working, doing domestic duties was not their thing, was not what they were always asked to do. So I don't blame them. I have people that I see and they don't raise their boys to do anything that has to do with feminine roles. So their boys don't cook, their boys don't do that. Imagine that kind of man growing up into an adult. For him, that is his own reality. He does not see cooking as the work of a man. Do you get? So I want you to understand that that's why it looks like I'm going to direct more of this conversation to the men. Back to what I was saying. The Bible talks about men loving their wives as Christ loved the church and Christ cared for the church. That a man, you should care for your wife as you care for your own body. You don't hate your body. You should, a normal human being, if you have all of your mental faculties intact, you will not hate your own body. You will care for your own body. You will take care of your own body. If your body is stressed, for instance, you will rest your body. You will look for means to take. Just imagine you're back from work, you're stressed. As a single man, you're back from work, you're stressed, and maybe you have to make a meal. One of the first things you think about is, can I order this meal? Can I outsource this meal? Because you don't want to go through the rigor of cooking again. Because cooking takes time, and you are tired. Just that's what you will do for yourself as a bachelor. And the Bible is saying what you will do for yourself. Think about doing it for your wife, caring for your wife. So that Ephesians 5 clearly establishes three things. That number one, the leadership role and the leadership responsibility is on the shoulders of the man. And the woman ought to submit and align with that vision, or to align with the vision of her husband and allow him lead her. The third thing it establishes is that the model is Christ and the church, not what you think, not how you were raised. It's not about your environment. It's about Christ and the church, not oppression. Because if we leave it to what we think or what the society thinks, we will fall into a lot of errors. So the model is Christ and the church, not oppression, not domination. Christ and the church, the way Christ related with the church. That's the model. The next foundational principle is what we see in 1 Timothy. That has to do with men providing for their households. And a man that does not provide for his household is worse than an infidel, that part of the Bible. Because it will be very unfair of me to not mention this part, as this has been the foremost argument I get from men when I make mention of cooking or household responsibilities. And they will say, oh, I provide for my house. So do you mean that I should stop providing so that I can cook and join the woman in cooking? That's like one of the foremost arguments I get. They bring the money matter and say, oh, I provide for my house, so why can't you just handle all of that? One of the first things I say is that if you are honest with yourself and you grew up in any average home in this present world, you most likely grew up in a two-income household where it was not just the man that carried the house financially, but the woman was also doing her part. If you're going to be honest with yourself, that's the truth. Most of us, if you grew up in any average home, it wasn't only the man that was providing financially. So I will say, and that's the thing about practical reality. Because when I talk with some of these men, I'm like, you don't want to be honest with yourself. The practical reality is that your mom contributed to that house, your dad contributed to that house. So it's just a no-brainer that as much as she's loving your dad with her money, he should also love her with respect to relieving the burden and the pressure of handling the home front alone. It's just, and really, it's always about sacrificial love at the end of the day. That's like one of the foremost arguments I get. Oh, a man provides, so does it mean he should stop providing? If you are going to be honest with yourself, except you are a very, very rich man, except you're a very, very rich person who does not necessarily. And the thing is, the way it should be is that the man should not even need the woman's money at all. But today's reality, that's not what is happening. You need both money, both income to sustain the house. And with even the both of them working, most times it's not even enough. And if he's a very, very rich man, that means he's very wealthy, I would say that love is sacrifice. And as someone that has the means, you can even outsource to relieve that pressure, relieve that burden. I'll still get there. But we say that in today's practical reality, a lot of things have changed. And that's where being sincere and being honest comes from. That's where we'll go back to 1 Corinthians 13, that love is patient, love is kind. This woman is being kind with her own money. You should be also kind to be involved in the home. And some of these things, I just feel like these are your children. This is your wife, your bride, and you ought to take care of. And when I hear some men say some things, one of the things I say is that you're a wicked man. No, this is wickedness. This is not kindness. I had a story, and it's a real life story, by the way. This lady put to bed. A week after she put to bed, the man was demanding that she enters the kitchen and cooks for him. And she just put to bed. She was weak. She needed care. This man was demanding that he's tired of eating out, that he wants her food. The first thing I thought was that you are a very unkind man. You are a very it's just being unkind. Because these things are just very foundational. They are foundational principles. It's love. After all of those rules, you go back to love. That's the foundational principle. That whoever is doing that duty, you are doing it as an act of service. It has nothing to do with gender. So whether it's the man or the woman, it's about loving them, being kind, being patient, looking for their own good, looking to their own good. He was demanding that she enters the kitchen and cooks for him. And that probably means that at the time she was pregnant, she was still cooking. She was still doing all of those things. Sometimes I don't blame the man because I think about where they are coming from. But other times, the first thing I ask is that it's really about kindness. It's really about kindness. And this particular person had the means. He had the means to actually outsource. But you know what he said? He said, I want my wife's cooking. Only my wife's cooking. In that scenario, in that instance, I just see a lot of unkindness. Let's go back to foundational principles. The first one is what we see in Ephesians 5. The next one is in 1 Timothy that talks about men providing for their households. Let me pause a bit here because men run into a lot of trouble when they think about this verse. Why am I saying that? Most men, when they look at that verse, they think about it only with respect to financial provision. It goes beyond financial provision. If you're only thinking about it and you're putting money side by side that verse, you will have a lot of issues. Because in this present day and age, a lot of women earn more than men. I have a lot of stories of the woman earning more than the man. A lot. It is until you maybe live with them that you realize some of these things. You will think it's the man providing, but it's really the woman. They earn more than their husbands. And one of the issues, because money is a big thing for men, it's an ego thing also for men. One of the issues men run into when they only think about that verse with respect to just money is that they start displaying signs of insecurity, they start being agitated, angry, a lot of bad traits start showing, and they also start feeling less of themselves. So that verse goes beyond financial provision. It cuts across physical safety, emotional security, relational safety, spiritual security. It cuts across those things. One thing that understanding does for you is that it helps you to be yourself, even when you're not earning as much as your wife. You just know that you bring much more to the table than just your money. In today's society, I've seen women that say that I don't even need your money. I just want you to get me, to understand me. They don't mind the gift. They don't mind you actually bringing in your resource. But what they really need is more than that because they have the money. I need you to get me, talk with me, talk to me, understand me, listen to me, be empathetic, be involved in my life, guide me, lead me spiritually. You hear those things and you just know that if you understand that, if you understand that as a man, you have less issues in your marriage. Because when you even hear married women talk and complain, it's always because their men don't provide those other things. Their men believe that once I give you money, I'm done. And that is just 1/5. Just imagine. And men will start saying things like, what do women even want? I have gone out, I have made the money, I have given her the money. What does she want? She's telling you she wants more than that. So what am I just saying with all of this? I'm saying get this. Get that provision goes beyond money. It goes beyond finances. It will help you to to know that you bring much more to the table than your money. Your money is good. Women love money, but have much more than money in this present day and age. Because only money is no longer an advantage. Is no longer an advantage. I was speaking to a woman recently, and she talked about how that one of the things she wants is a confidant, someone that gets her. And she's earning good money for herself. So in this present day and age, realities have changed. Get that and no peace. The next foundational principle is the principle of hospitality. If you check 1 Peter 4:9 and Romans 12:13, you see that these are passages where instructions were given to believers to be hospitable. And these instructions, like I said earlier, they were given to believers, meaning both the men and the women. 1 Peter 4:9, for instance, Apostle Peter was telling them to show hospitality to one another without grudging. Let's picture this. Someone comes to visit you as a man, whether married or unmarried. Let's use unmarried, for instance. Someone comes to visit you as a man, an unmarried man. Won't you host them? And in this day and age, hosting people includes giving them something to eat, whether you buy it, whether you outsource it, whether you cook it. So you have to show it. You have to be hospitable. This may include cooking. And that's just to show that it has no gender identity. The same thing goes for a married man. Now, in this instance, if it's a married man, you have your wife. So most likely, it's either your wife is handling it, if that's the agreement, or the both of you are doing it together, or you alone are handling it, if that's the agreement. I just said all of this to show you that cooking has no gender identity. You are not less of a man to the men. You are not less of a woman to the women. Because there are women also who believe that cooking makes them less of themselves. They feel that they are doing less of themselves. They are doing less valuable work when they cook. No, you are still you. It has no gender identity. It does not reduce your person. So in those scriptures, we see that the Bible is encouraging being hospitable, showing care. And you will do that whether you're a man or a woman. You should do that whether you're a man or a woman. This may include cooking for your guests. The final foundational principle, which is actually the first. The final foundational principle is the principle of love. Sacrificial love. And that's what we see in 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not boastful, love is not proud, love does not seek its own gain. Love suffers long. That's the principle. Because at the end of the day, what you both are doing is loving each other by serving each other. Whoever is doing it, you understand that it's an act of service. It's about love. It's about being patient. It's about caring for each other. That's really the final foundational principle. It's sacrificial love. I personally believe that if you're not ready to make sacrifices in marriage, whether as a man or a woman, you should not be married. You are not yet ready at all. Because love is sacrifice. And you're doing it unto God eventually. It is unto God. As a man, you're there to serve your wife. You're there to love on her and care for her. As a woman, you're also there to serve your husband. And in that way, you're showing that you honor him, you respect him. It is service. It is sacrificial love. So there should never be a day where someone is saying, I'm the man of the house. The man does not do these things. She is your bride. She's the one you're to care for. One last principle, which I thought I was going to mention in passing, but let me break it out here, is the principle of purpose. As a man and as a woman, when God sent you to this earth, before he sent you, there was a book that was opened concerning you. And in that book, he wrote down the things you ought to be on this earth. He gave you talents. That's what I'm saying. He gave you talents. And I personally believe that all of your talents cannot be cooking. Everything that God gave you, it cannot be cooking. It cannot be just handling the home front. Even that work of people who say that I've been called to handle the home front, I've been called to to be in charge of home management, to do all of those things. People that even say that, yeah, I believe there is more purpose to that than just the doing. It would, because it will flow into training other people. It will flow into showing Christ in what you're doing. It cannot just be cooking. It cannot just be cleaning the house. That cannot be your purpose. It can never be limited to that. Because you serve a God who thinks far and wide, who is big and large. It cannot be that. So people will say, let me use the word tradwives, who will say that's all that I'm called to do, that's all I want to do. That's even that there is a calling in that. There's something much more in that than the act and the activity. It can't just be the activity. If you're going to talk about purpose, because that purpose must bring out Christ. It can't just be the activity. It goes beyond the activity. That's a digression. What I'm saying is that when God created you, He gave you talents. And one of the things you both ought to do for each other as a man and a woman married is to ensure that both of you die empty. That the man dies empty, the woman dies empty. You both make use of everything God has blessed you with. And that's why I will say again that you are a team. If cooking and managing the home is bringing pressure, outsource it. If you have the means. If you don't have the means, work out a plan together. Because cooking, and that should not be the reason you both are suffering. You have more things to focus on than just that. I think that understanding also, it kills ego. The Bible calls you as a man. You are the husbandman. You are to groom her and make her who God says she should be, not who you think she should be. So if, let's say, a line in her book is that she ought to be the president of the United States of America or the president of Nigeria in the next 10 years, do you think that kind of woman is the one you should subject to, oh, I only eat, I've had this before, that's why I'm saying this. I only eat fresh food. I only eat fresh food. So I don't want you to give me refrigerated food. I don't want you to give me any food, any soup that was made yesterday. Every day you ought to cook a new food. And I want to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do you think a woman subjected to that will fulfill that purpose in those number of years? No. Let me just answer it. No. And let's be practical here. If you think she will, for between now and next week, so do use a week for this practice. Between now and next week, cook every day as a man. Cook every day. And you will cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If, let's say, work will not afford you to come back home to cook, when you wake up in the morning, cook breakfast and lunch. So eat your breakfast at home, pack lunch, and go to work. When you come back, cook dinner. And make sure that you're not refrigerating any soup. You're not keeping anything to use the next day. Everything you're cooking every day must be fresh. And do it for a whole week. And come back to tell us whether it's easy or not. Cooking takes time. It takes time. You spend about 2 hours in the kitchen cooking one meal. And for men that demand breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they want their wives to be the one cooking everything, they don't want it outsourced. I look at some of those men and I ask questions like, do you know what it means to be a husband man? Do you know what it means to ensure that your wife births all she ought to birth? If you know what it means, you won't have this woman doing this every day. Because I see it as wickedness, if I'm going to be honest. I always see it as wickedness. I see it as being unkind. Imagine sacrificing 2 hours. So 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, that's 6 hours. And when you're done cooking, you're most likely tired. You want to rest. You want to shower. That's like another 1 hour gone. So add all of these things up. When will she have the time to focus on purpose? To do the things God has called her to do? If she says that God has called her into cooking alone, I won't argue, but I will say that it's more than that. There's always purpose in that. You can find the purpose in that. It can't just be that. It can't just be the activity, is what I'm saying. It goes beyond the activity. But if she argues that that is the only thing that God has called her to do in your life, maybe you're good to go. You guys will not have issues if that is what she's claiming. Yeah? If she's claiming that. But if she's saying there's more, if she's saying there's more that God wants me to achieve, you cannot subject that woman to that. You guys have to find alternate solutions. Because you understand you're a team. And to make our life better, Ecclesiastes 4, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. When one falls, the other raises that one that falls. If your woman does not grow into the capacity God will have her grow into, if you fall, she won't have what it takes to bring you up. When you think about all of these things, you will calm down. This same principle applies to women too. His life ought to be better by virtue of the fact that you came into his life. He should not be more miserable because you came into his life. You both are to help each other. When you have that mindset, I believe that most of these arguments, you won't have it as much. Because what you both will be looking at is that how can we relieve pressure and achieve what God wants us to achieve in record time. So if it means outsourcing, we'll outsource. If it means alternating, we'll alternate. You're thinking as a team. You're thinking about how to go above and beyond for each other. So you see from all of this that the real issue is not cooking itself. The real issue is expectations. Many people enter into marriages without discussing their expectations clearly. Let me paint this picture. A man who grew up in a home where his mother cooked every single day, and a woman who grew up in a home where the parents shared responsibilities. Imagine that they get married. Each of them are coming with that mindset that my normal is the normal. When they get married and they don't discuss what their normal is, there will be clashes, there will be frustrations.